I think about when we have close relationships with people that we are leading.
Mm-hmm.
Many times I run into leaders who have gotten advice somewhere along the line. You can't be too close with your folks, and I get where they're coming from, and I would agree with them because here's what I mean by that: if you don't have the courage to have the hard conversation with somebody who you are close with, in other words, you're going to spare them what they need to hear because you quote unquote care so much, then yeah, you probably shouldn't get too close or hire your friends or that type of thing. Now, I actually believe there's such an incredible world of value when we have close relationships because I will tell you, well, I can just even think about my relationship with you. If I know that Dave Lovell cares about me and he comes to me and says, with care, you need to hear this. This is hard. This is hard. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and go back in time. I'm remembering a moment. There was a morning, I want to say it was a Saturday morning, and you were investing in me and about 3 or 4 other guys. We showed up for our Saturday morning meeting. And by the way, I understand this Saturday morning better now than I did at the time. Because at the time, I wasn't married and didn't have kids. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I'll throw out some names here: Chad Lewis, Chris Peters.
I remember. I think we're at IHOP. I think I remember what's about ready to say.
And okay, well, you can tell me, none of us had prepared for the discussion. And I remember you getting pretty upset with us, and so justifiably so. And I remember walking away from that, and I don't remember exactly everything you said, but the sentiment was, I got enough going on. If you guys are going to jack around and not be prepared and not put the time in, then we don't need to be doing this. And you weren't mean, but you were clearly bothered by the fact that we had not prepared. And I think about it now. I've got 4 kids. If I was investing a Saturday morning in some young people and they were showing up not having done just the basics, and again, I didn't have the perspective at the time, but what we both know now is that folks at that time of life generally have a lot more flexibility and time to get things done. Yeah. There's really no reason. There's no good reason to show up for free, wise advice and help that you're not prepared for. Yeah. But that was 25-ish years ago. I still remember that Saturday morning. And what you told us that morning was the truth that we needed to hear. We needed to understand that it was important to be prepared. We needed to understand that you were getting paid to do that, for Pete's sake. You were just investing us. We needed to understand honoring people's time. We needed to understand that there was more at stake than just hanging out on a Saturday morning, because you could have been with your wife and with your kids and spending time on those that were close to you. And so you didn't spare us the truth that we needed to hear, and 25 years later, I still remember it. And
it's funny because when you said that, I knew that's where you were going to go, but you can look back on it now with, I think it was pretty accurate. It wasn't really even the time, to be honest with you, Tim. Yeah. That is a part of it. It's like, well, hold on, why I prepared? Why are you not prepared? Yeah. It really was that group of guys you included in that. I expect more out of you because, there are a lot of people that could walk in that door that, you know what, I kind of expect you not to be prepared. You all, I expect to be prepared. Yeah. And I wanted you all to know this is, you're different. This is not, it was more than just my time. It was,
that's good.
Don't compromise yourself. Yeah. For if you say you want to do something, do it. You have choices. Life is about choices. If you're going to say you're going to do something, then choose to commit to do it. Don't do it halfway. And that was my expectation of you because of who you guys were. And again, that expectation was clear. And it's funny you said that because I remember the hard conversations. And I think you're dead on. If you don't care, you don't have the right to say anything to anybody. All you're doing is just throwing rocks at somebody. If you care, doggone it, I care. And you need to say, here's the thing is, you need to say the good stuff and you need to say the hard stuff. And if just saying the hard stuff is not good enough, You got to say the good stuff,
that's
like,
true.
man, I love you. You're awesome. You're the best ever. I'm just all those things need to go just as with it, because there may come a time that you do need to say the hard stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
That's there. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, you're dead on that.
Well,
It's
and
funny you say that, because I remember we were at IHOP in the corner. I remember that conversation.
well, the thing that's really interesting about that from a concept standpoint is that when I know that somebody cares, I receive that delta feedback in a totally different way than if I
Yep.
don't think the person cares about me. And so I knew that you did, so did the other guys. And so you're kind of left there like, wow, he's really upset, but I know that he cares about me. This isn't just about him kind of working out his own emotions. Like, I really need to think about what just happened here. I need to think about why I wasn't prepared or what I wasn't doing in order to be ready to have a, kind of a healthy, valuable conversation here on a Saturday morning as we were
Well,
getting
you know
together
what,
as a
Tim?
group. And so,
I don't think you remember this. There was another conversation that you and I had
Oh,
that
really? That's
was even maybe a little more pointed.
okay.
And
Remind me of this one.
we were in your living room over in Maplewood or Richmond Heights,
Yeah.
wherever. Yeah,
Yeah, Richmond Heights. Yep.
And I think I even said, Tim, I care more about your success than you do.
I think I am remembering a time in the living room. So I don't know if I might talk about this after when I do the post of the interview. So they'll have to decide whether they keep this in or not. You were the first person that ever told me that I had something to offer other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be the conversation that you're talking about. We were sitting in the living room because I didn't see it. I was like, "Who am I? What do you mean?" So I'm wondering if maybe that's the conversation
Yes,
that
same
you're
one.
talking about.
And it
Yeah.
was, and I can't remember the context of what you were trying to do or not do.
Probably not.
But it was well, it was along the lines of maybe there's some life choices you were trying to really think through, and you were really waffling. And it was in the living. I mean, I remember, and it was one of those. Is like, dude, you're selling yourself short, and it was really it was along the lines of, look, I believe in you more than you believe in yourself, and that's sad. That's sad as an outsider that I see all this in you, and you can't see it in yourself. So those hard conversations, it's like, well, how are you going to receive that? Well, you know what? If I care, that's the saddest thing in the world if I don't say that to you. It's like, dude, stop. You've got something to offer this world.
That's
that
right.
if you don't do that, it's sad. And so, but it was one of those, is, again, if you see something and you care, you say it. You don't just not say it. You got to say it on that. So.
Yeah. Well, if you're willing to say the hard things, I think it is the best thing in the world to work with and lead people with whom you have close relationships, because the upside is amazing. The upside is incredible. And as long as we have the courage to participate in the harder conversations as well, then you get the best of all worlds. And what's really interesting, as you think about what we're doing right now, what we're talking about, the podcast that this is on, I'm 50 now, and for 20 focused years at this point, I've been digging into the issue of leading, and more every day over time, leading other leaders. And you were the first person to suggest that I be leading in this way. And I remember being baffled by that concept at the time. Like, what do you mean I've got something to offer? It was really like I just didn't see it. And you did see more in me than I saw in myself. But because you were willing to verbalize it, along with all the other life events that kind of come along, here we are having this conversation 25 years later, of a door that you were really the first person to open it as wide as you did. And so, I'm forever thankful for conversations like that. I think back on them and I smile, whether it's the one at HIOP or the one in my living room. But you being willing, you didn't spare me the truth that I needed to hear. Kim Scott, she wrote the book. Hold on. Give me a second. What was the name of the book? Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor. She calls this idea of sparing people the truth they need to hear. She calls it ruinous empathy. Like I'm connecting with you, but I'm going to ruin you in the process because you're not going to hear the truth that you need to hear. And some of the podcast listeners may have to forgive me because that one comes up a lot. So it's probably not the first time I've said it on the podcast. It's a really wonderful concept by Kim, but that's what you were not willing to do. You were not willing to ruin the people around you by sparing them the truth that they needed to hear. And the reason that you had a clear audience is because we knew you cared. And so when you kind of leaned in and had the hard thing to say, myself and lots of other people that I know leaned in right back to listen, because I knew I was with somebody who cared about me, and you weren't just throwing rocks, as you said. You were helping me, even through the hard thing. So I love that about you, and that's what great leaders do.
And I appreciate you saying that, Tim, because it is. And a lot of times you say things because you're going to get something out of it. As a business leader, develop the people. There is a tangible return on that investment in people. But I think if you're going to have you need to do that with everybody, whether you're going to get something out of it or not. And obviously, you were not going to. For me, I wasn't going to gain anything by you becoming who you are today.
No, I wasn't working for you.
No, and so there wasn't that, okay, there's a return on investment. But that return on investment is really taking a look at saying, look, there's somebody here, and this is true. I'm just telling you, there are so many good people out there with great skills, but they're lost, and they need resources and people in their lives to help develop those things. And I get greater joy out of watching the success of other people than even my own success. I get more warm fuzzies out of your story than I do whatever I've accomplished in my life, which is still minimal compared to a lot of things. It's just more fun, to be able to see those people, to be able to see those young leaders develop now in their 50s with their kids and all that stuff. It's way more rewarding than anything I've ever accomplished in my life on that stuff.